Good morning. Thanks for joining us today. This is the Surfliner sprint review and demo, the second of 4 sprints of this work cycle. We'll be taking a peek at what was accomplished specifically for Comet Sprint 30 and Daylight Sprint 2. Tamsin, please step in and take the lead.
Okay. So I'm going to start with the Comet work that's taken place, and then I'll talk a little bit about how the Daylight work is progressing and hand it over to Margaret to do a dev environment-based demo on the Daylight work and talk about what's next for both of these systems. I want to start with couple of bugs that we fixed related to export and to links for outbound objects. So let's say let's start with an exporter. Comet staging feels very slow today, I noticed. Okay, so here is an exporter. What's today? 0314. We'll do a metadata only export, and we'll export a collection. Yeah, there we go. We can export Vern Todd. And I'm going to skip visibility and status. I don't want to filter on either of those factors. And I should. The bug that we fixed related to this is that when this export actually finishes, it was staying in pending. So you can see some of these that have downloads below from prior demos are still marked pending. You can also see some failed ones. But this status now does update. So the downloads here, is the status show on this page? Oh yeah, we got complete statuses for all these various objects and the collection entry. And I am able, back on the exporters page, I should be able to see that this has a finished status. If I can get the exporters page to load. Complete, yes. So that's export working a lot more sharply. There are a few other things that we're trying to iron out with export right now to get round tripping working. And one of those is that in this export, and I'm not going to try to pull it up, but one of those is that in this export, there are probably some misplaced empty file set records, and that makes re-import of it not work out of the box. So we're trying to track that down and get a patch in for that. And I think there may be one or two more little fiddly details between the import and export side that are keeping us from being able to show you a round trip. But I think we're very on track for wrapping up this work cycle with real import-export round tripping, which is exciting. We also fixed a bug on import, where for new imports, you can see me failing to round trip this morning in my import history. So if I make a new importer, I love naming them things that I'll definitely name them again, just to confuse us all. So I'm gonna grab a CSV file. Sorry, let's do where's one moment. SRC.
Your screen is making me hungry.
My background is a picture that I took at a market in Newburgh. Do you see my screen again now, though?
Yes.
Okay, great. So Comet, sorry. Uploads. I'm just like not thinking straight about where I want to be finding these files. Spec is what I want. Spec fixtures. Support fixture, no. There we go. Bulk racks, and I'll do works and collections. So in previous imports, we were running into problems where we would get some entries that had generated, like, well, not even a generated, like a file path style source ID, and that was just a bug that needed to get ironed out. These imports now come in cleanly and only have source IDs that are listed in the CSV. That's a good thing. Okay. Lastly, on the, do I qualify this as a bug front? We did some work to tighten up the integration between Shoreline and Comet. And this is, I think, going to be really, the architectural work that went into this is going to be very big in a generalized way for our various platforms. So I want to grab, I actually don't want to grab on all collections. I want to grab all objects. And I want to filter by the Shoreline project. And for a long time, we had a problem where the objects that were published to a front end like Shoreline had the appropriate links in this listing, but the links actually went to a URI that was attached to the metadata API. And we've fixed that at the architectural level. I'm going to demo this in a slightly fussy way that works around a configuration issue on this particular stack. But these links now work in principle. Oh, that just did work. I didn't expect that, actually. Okay, so here we go. So this link now goes to Super Skunk correctly. It didn't do that 10 minutes ago, but I think maybe I just wasn't patient enough with my retry cycle. But Matt, the thing I was mentioning earlier is, do you see tiny in the bottom of my screen? The actual URI that we're referencing here is at superskunkstage.superskunkstaging.service. So that's an internal cluster DNS routing. And I think we'd like for this to publish through to the shoreline, to the public shoreline address, which Comet clearly has because it's in the slug. So in any case,
Tamsin, that might actually just be a misconfiguration on our end.
yeah, I think so. I think it's just a configuration thing. I think the thing that I'm trying to show here is, like, in principle, we've solved the problem of having cross-referencing between these various systems. And that actually took a little bit of figuring out. It's like we're getting a little bit better at distributed systems every day, kind of thing. Oh, okay, so that's that. We also continued to work on, actually, I'm just going to pop back over here, on the bulk workflow behavior. And importantly, we said we would extend the feature that we showed you last time about filtering by importer down to filtering by project. So now if I would like to do my batch processes by project, it's possible for me to sort of like grab all the objects that are in review in the Shoreline project and say, so I probably don't like which of these feature sets I want to use. Probably depends a little bit on how I'm thinking about projects in my local implementation, or like how I'm thinking about a particular project. If my project is scoped at Shoreline project, then I probably don't want to be going through the exercise of publishing everything that's sitting in review. But supposing that my project is like like cycling digitization, like an ongoing digitization project, then I may want to be in a position where periodically, like as stuff is coming into that project, periodically I'm systematically reviewing it and moving all the objects through together, so that like whenever there are in review objects in my project or objects that are in a particular workflow in my state in my project, then I'd want to be like working with all of those at once rather than ones that just came in from one importer. So these are like two different models for how you might handle doing batch stuff. Either I want to see the things that I just imported or that have been imported as part of this batch process, or like I have scoped a project that's happening somewhere in the library, and on an ongoing basis, I want to move this content through. So I think both of those things are like work really cool. I can now, like, I think find all the completed objects in Shoreline and go over to view them. Is this actually a Shoreline? Oh no, I didn't filter by project here. Okay, that's why. So yeah, so there are a couple of objects here, and like as I load them up, I can go visit them in Shoreline. That's still the Tidewater one. So because I moved them through the workflow, they published to Shoreline, and now I can go click through to them. that's some end-to-end distributed computing. Yay. Okay. I have one more thing to demo, and then one more thing to talk about vaguely, and then I'll hand it off to the daylight side, or I'll introduce the daylight side. So we also, during this work cycle or during this sprint, did an upgrade to Hyrax over upstream. Hyrax made a major release, the 5.5.0 release. And this is a really significant milestone for us because it represents the point where Hyrax officially supports the backend that we've been using for a couple of years. The Postgres Valkyrie base code is now the primary code path for Comet, or sorry, for Hyrax. So this means that there's good reason to hope that there will be less churn related to the kinds of customizations that we've had to do to work around various things. There's an opportunity for us to sort of continually realign with work that's happened upstream. We've had some discussions as a result of this upgrade about where and how we need to be approaching that. But there were a couple of features that weren't working before that are now working correctly, and one of them is this embargo setup. And I can now like do embargo management behavior. This is still listed as under embargo. Maybe sometimes I have a hard, yeah, I'm gonna like, well, okay. Well, I was all confident about us having embargoes demoable, but maybe not. Maybe that's, Gabriella, you also like worked through the embargo stuff, right? Maybe this is an environment issue that I need to be looking at.
I didn't do this deactivate all selected.
Okay. In any case, we do expect the embargo and lease functionality to actually be working now. So if I like create new objects with embargoes, they come through correctly, and the management actually should happen. At least in principle, there's a solution in our environment for how to automatically update embargoes. I think that's been needing a minor tending to for a while now, but I think we'll put it in the queue to close the loop on all the whole embargo lease feature set now that the upstream code for this behavior in Valkyrie is settled. So that's exciting. There may be some other places where we've gotten wins from the upstream upgrade, but I haven't like gone through and tried to catalog those now. In theory, at this point, the broad Hyrax feature set is compatible with the stack that we're using, so we shouldn't be seeing places where there's behavior in Hyrax that's not working for us. If we are seeing that, we want to be naming that and getting fixes into the like bug tickets in. Last thing that I want to do is take us to Surfliner merge requests. Longshoe did some nice work this sprint on selecting representative images for collection. So these are like what the collection object looks like. This didn't get merged through, and there are a couple of things that I want to say about it really quick, just to acknowledge that this is work that's like almost through the gate on two fronts. So if I have a test collection, I can go to its edit page, browse to this representative image, and upload an image, and then that image becomes the sort of like default display to represent the collection. This can be a thing that you upload directly, and that's the feature set that you see in this. That's the feature set that you see in this set of screenshots. There's a separate merge request that is also very close to being done, but this one's approved and just like didn't get merged yesterday. In fact, I'm going to push set auto merge right now that I've finished the live Comet demo. But once the other ticket allows you also to select this image from the various objects that are in the collection. So each of the objects has its own representative image that like is generally like it's, if there's a thumbnail attached to the file set that's the representative, then that's what you see as the thumbnail. And the second feature set will allow you to choose a representative for the collection from the collection. So the two use cases here are like, I've got a collection with lots of images in it. I just want the like display thing to be a really exciting one of those, or I've got a collection that like has a logo or like an image that says its name or like isn't a curatorial part of the collection, but that I want to be displayed as the collection thing, like thumbnail in various places. And this supports that use case as well. So that's Comet. On the Daylight side, we've continued to do some like pretty heavy technical exploration. The architecture there remains that we have a blacklight app that may be like fairly short-lived, or that may devolve into just an API that is intended to be the target for the discovery index for Daylight. We're working on getting that app deployed out into staging and prod deploys in our actual infrastructure. That's a thing that I think will probably happen late this week or early next. It's late this week now. And then we continue to have various micro front ends that are attached to that. A bunch of work has happened on the patterns that we want to use to make those micro front ends plug into the back end and be composable into a discovery interface. I'm going to hand it off to Margaret to demo that. But before I do that, I'll say we're also exploring the best pattern for deploying those front ends. We have sort of a pattern that works for the two of them that we're working with now, but we rather think that the micro front end pattern is going to lead to a proliferation of these, and that like which ones of them each campus may want to deploy are going to be pretty variable. So we're exploring alternatives to our existing CI strategy, continuous integration and continuous deployment strategy to support that. It doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to do all of that with push deploys that are triggered on merge requests. So we're looking at other ways of doing that, and that's something that that's been energizing on the ops side. I'm going to hand it off to Margaret for demo now. Sorry that I didn't leave you much time, Margaret.
It is okay. It is a fast demo, I think, hopefully. So, let me share my screen. Okay, you should be seeing my Firefox here. And the two things that I want to show you, this here you can see it's deployed at Daylight Spike, EKS DLD library ucsb.edu. This is a sample micro front end. This is just something that I threw together in a couple hours as a toy that was a little more interactive than the things that we showed you last time. It has two columns. The left column is items. You can click on the items, and then it shows information for the items in the right-hand side. So this is being deployed as a micro front end at this URL. The other tab I have open here is a Blacklight application. This is just running locally in localhost. And you can see it has that same component inserted into the Blacklight view, but the content of that component has changed and is provided by the application. So I click here, it's now saying it's a Blacklight app. And if you click here, you can see the time that this page was rendered. This is being done on page load. So if I reload it and then try and click the time again, you'll get a different time there. So that's the work that we've done. We have this one component which is being served through the micro front end architecture at this URL. But then we also have an application that's able to pull that and insert its own data and use that to render something. So the idea is that we'll have lots of these, and then each campus can have their own and customize how it looks, and then the application can serve it the information that it needs to actually work properly. I think that's my demo.
So yeah, so the next steps for this are to get it integrated with Comet, which means that like the publication workflows that we've seen for Shoreline and for Tidewater in the past will be extended to the Daylight, the sort of dummy Daylight backend app that we're using. Once that's deployed, we'll sort of repeat those patterns, and then we have to figure out like what the API level commitments are for if I have objects in my index, how do I access them? Like how do I populate data in a micro front end that like guarantees that interoperability? And that should put us in a place where we have a shared pattern for getting data into an index for discovery and for supporting that on the back end. And then we have a toolkit for creating mix and matchable UI interface or UI components for the actual user interactions on discovery. And I think if we can do that and get like a few of those components ironed out, then we'll have had a like that looks to me like a super successful exploratory Daylight Spike. And I'm excited about it. It's really cool to see it come together. I think that's all I have.
Great demo, Tamsin and Margaret. Appreciate it. I'm going to stop recording, and if anybody has questions, feel free to jump in. Let me just hit the stop.